Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome as they walk in now. The Prime Minister of Fiji, His Excellency Frank Bainimarama. We also have Deputy Executive Director, United Nations Human Settlements Program, Victor Kiso. Honourable James Macharia, Minister of Transport. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? Are we well? Let me start off by celebrating the mood created by the Debe Debe drummers. And all wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Your Excellency, this is a very, very timely event because we have gone around the country and mapped the number of slums all over the cities in this country. And you'll be surprised the number. We have at least 480 slums, informal settlements, across our cities. And so this subject today is very critical in terms of the way we're going to address these issues going forward. I'm once again thankful for His Excellency to fly all the way from Fiji to come and join us for this forum, and in particular to be part of this event of a lunch. Your Excellency, we don't take that for granted. Those of you who know geography, you know where Fiji is, and you know how many miles His Excellency has flown to get here to be with us, and to be so passionate. Yesterday he told us he'd like to go and see some of our initiatives in terms of low-cost housing. Because as you know, we said for every batch of houses we do, 20% will be at the informal settlements improvement, meaning the slum upgrading. And so, Your Excellency, we connect with your desire and with your support. And for that, we are truly grateful. And with those few remarks, it's now my great privilege to welcome His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Fiji, to make his speech. Asanteni sana.
Your Excellencies, the word slum may bring to mind the multi-story, dilapidated shanties that line the streets of Brazil's famous favelas, or the hundreds of thousands of precarious-looking buildings in Dharavi, Mumbai, that was spotlighted by the film Slumdog Millionaire. But while you may not immediately think of fragile, tin-roofed pole buildings perched by the seaside in Fiji, by any definition, this is an issue we are all too familiar with in the South Pacific. We, under this room, all have our own images of what informal settlements look like in our own countries. And while a single massive slum in one country may contain a population that outsizes entities, small nations, outsizes entire small nations, there are universal lessons to be gleaned from how we're dealing with the issue in Fiji that nations of any size can learn from. While it may be a matter of mere semantics in Fiji, we use the term informal settlement quite intentionally, as we found words like slum and even sometimes squatter to be both politically charged and dehumanizing. It's an important distinction to make because it guides us how we've dealt with the issue in Fiji. We are implementing a rights-based approach, one that doesn't rely on confrontation or the forceful uprooting of communities. We recognize that we share the same goals as these informal settlers, to mainstream them into our economy, allowing them to become bigger parts of our national life and bigger players in our national development. In 2016, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you may have heard, Fiji was struck by Tropical Cyclone Winston, a Category 5 storm that was the strongest ever to make landfall in the Southern Hemisphere. the brunt of extreme weather events, which have been amplified and accelerated by a changing climate, undoubtedly fell hardest by those settlers who, because of a lack of resources and no real ownership or sense of long-term stability in their living situation, invest very little in the structural integrity of their homes. This temporary mindset and the construction that accompanies it leaves them particularly vulnerable to high winds, mudslides, and flash flooding, as we witnessed in Fiji when Winston ravaged our shores. That was made clear in the wake of Winston, with widespread devastation extending to our informal settlements. Flimsy homes were flattened and sheet metal siding and roofs cut through the air at hundreds of kilometers per hour, becoming a major source of damage, injury, and loss of life. This gave us perspective on the urgent need to deal with the problem and the shared interest in creating safer, more regulated, and more sustainable communities that would better serve both our informal settlers and all Fijians. To accomplish this, we embarked on a nationwide effort to regularize our informal settlements, granting secure land tenure to their inhabitants. This is very important in Fiji. We've explored options that make more effective use of limited land while reducing development costs, such as strata titles and urban planning, with the help of targeted partners like the Singapore Corporation Enterprise. We're not only creating housing, but entire ecosystems with amenities like markets, food stalls, town centers, and local schools readily available. By doing so, we afford the settlements with a level of dignity, while also reducing their carbon footprint, fitting neatly into Fiji's broader sustainable development goal. But we, like many of you here today, know that buildings and roads alone won't solve this issue. This has been tried and failed all too often. Any plan is incomplete without considering the need for change at the cultural and social levels. We need to give our informal settlers a sense of ownership over their communities. Ownership grants confidence. Confidence fuels investment, and investment builds resilience. We build on this foundation of confidence by enabling our informal settlers with the security, with the tools and incentives that they need to invest in their homes and communities. To permanently put an end to temporary lifestyles, these settlers need to be active participants in the upgrading of their lives, their homes and their communities. That's why Fiji has openly embraced partnerships with both the private sector and non-governmental organizations like the IFC, World Bank, and of course, the UN Habitat. We're building partnerships with those who also see the lack of climate resilience in our informal settlements as a potential source of disaster that needs to be addressed with urgency. It's why the Adaptation Fund has outlined the need for a holistic four-component approach to making our informal settlements more climate secure. Indeed, knowing that real sustainable change comes at the human level, we've introduced innovative solutions in our national budgets that provide grants for new homeowners and leaseholders, subsidize land surveying and division to drastically ease the transition from informal to formal land leases, and allocate grant funding that allows small businesses to take root, bringing much of the black market economy that exists in these communities out of the shadows. No matter what we label we give them, the world's informal settlements must be approached proactively and through a lens of human dignity to make meaningful progress. We must think creatively and never forget the same rights that are afforded to all of our citizens and the same economic potential that lies within them. And we must work hand in hand with like-minded organizations like the UN Habitat to lay the foundation for communities that are safer, more resilient, and more sustainable, breaking the cycle of informal poverty and benefiting our economies, our people, and our nations for generations to come. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for an incredible speech.